Hello and welcome to
Hi.
Alicia's Adventures. We are doing the financially winning series with Niqua today for our financial literacy education month. So I'm so excited to talk to her about what it is and what it looks like to be financially free and how we all can get to that because we're all trying to make our money work for us
Yeah.
and live our life. So I am using StreamYard. So I want to apologize in advance if I'm getting the stuff late or not. I'm just trying to figure out how this all works. This is a tester to us. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you all so much for joining us. Chat in the comments, ask questions if you would like, and we will get started. That is my disclaimer. Okay, if you're watching this the rerun, just go past to a minute and 30 seconds. But I'll introduce myself first, and then I'll let my guest introduce herself, and then we'll have our conversation. Okay. So if you're on this channel, you might be subscribed, or you might have just seen it from you sharing it. My name is Alicia, and I do YouTube. I talk about all things millennial lifestyle. I have a podcast, and this is where it really came at. I wanted to bring something online on my YouTube channel to be able to just like educate millennials and let's talk about how we can win and how we can create these conversations so that we can, do better in our life. So I would say that I'm usually on Instagram or YouTube. I create a lot of travel content as well. A podcast. I'm just a media chick, honestly. But I love talking about traveling, love talking about making more money and how we can create the life that we want to create and without being fearless. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me. I would love for you to introduce yourself.
All right. So, hi, everybody. If you do not know who I am Nika of Financially Winning. And Financially Winning is my personal finance business. And it was created to help all individuals of different walks of life to just win with their finances. So, I focus on budgeting, also. Kind of like the basics of budgeting, making sure that people understand how to save effectively, how to pay off debt, and
Mhm.
then, of course, how to build wealth. I paid off 21K of student loan debt last year in May is when I completed my journey. So
We
I
can
had
clap. We can have a moment of silence for that. $21,000, like, come on, yeah,
thank
that's
you so much. So
amazing.
yeah, so like in May of last year, I kind of wrapped up my journey with my student loans. I was working on that. I gave myself like 2 years originally, but then I ended up like expediting my payoff journey to
Okay,
doing
that's
that
good.
in 11 months. So it was definitely a lot. Not saying it was easy, but I was definitely dedicated. And yeah, my, main focus with my brand is to just put the finance education out there to make it accessible and
Mhm,
for, other individuals to also win with their money in those areas that I mentioned before, because those are like the four pillars that my brand focuses on. I am also a travel blogger, so I have my travel brand as well, which is Traveling with Nika. And with that brand, I focus more on providing travel tips, travel hacks, and strategies. So that also ties into kind of like winning with your money, because a lot of people want to like travel more and, do more fun things in their lives, and travel is kind of my thing. So I kind of do the both things, very well. I'm very knowledgeable in both areas, and it's definitely two of my favorite things to talk about. And I always incorporate finances with my travel content. Okay, so if you do follow my travel page, you will see that I talk about costs, for trips, and how much, how what they entail. So for example, flights, how much I paid on hotels, if I travel hack the flight by using like points, and all those different sort of things. So I try to incorporate finances in both areas that I focus on when it comes to my businesses. because I
Mhm.
think it's important.
Yes, yes, I love that too. Because finances is really like what affects our lifestyles and what we do and stuff like that. So that is definitely really, really great. We're gonna have to talk about that student loan getting down in 11 months because woo, let me tell you, baby, I'm just thankful that they keep getting pushed back, okay? But before we get into it, I would like to know, I can hear the accent. So for the people that are listening, I just want you to tell them, where are you from?
Yes, so I am from the Virgin Islands. I grew up on the 8.5 square mile island of Virgin Gorda. So that's where I grew up. That's where I'm from. And yeah,
Okay, that's really cool. I have a coworker, she's from the Virgin Islands, a couple of them. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make it there one day.
nice.
So that's really cool. So, as we know, April is Financial Literacy Month, and
Mm.
financial literacy is really important with us making more money. But just because you're making more money doesn't mean that you really know how to save more money or keep your money like where it needs to be. You get it and you spend it. So, I wanted to just ask you, how do you budget so that
Mhm.
you can financially win?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that budgeting is basically the cornerstone and the foundation of having a, financially, well life. I believe in the foundation of budgeting, and I personally use the budgeting method called a zero-based budget. And all that means is that any money that I have coming in, I have an assignment for it. So I don't just, pay like my bills and then there's money just sitting in my accounts and I'm just spending it however. I allocate money to all of my different categories, including just my spending. So if I want to purchase, let's just say, a bag this month, I will put money in my budget, in my personal spending to get that bag. If I want to do more brunches this month, I will put more money into my restaurant budget. When it comes to travel, I have a separate travel savings account that I put money aside, very often to be able to fund and finance my travel lifestyle. So I would say I use the zero-based budget method, and it's just assigning a dollar to all of those different categories, not just focusing on your bills. So one of the things with me budgeting is it took a lot of practice, and I've been budgeting for quite some time now. It's probably at least maybe about 7 years by now, but it didn't always start off like that, right? So I always want to encourage individuals that when you start out on this financial journey, getting a grasp of budgeting is the key to be able to managing your finances, better.
Okay, yeah, that's really, really good. I wanted to ask, where do you reside at, like the area that you're
Yeah.
in?
So I am in East Coast, Sunshine State. So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, when you were talking about budgeting, you're talking about brunches and like that. I'm like, well, is your city known for brunches and going down and stuff like that? It's like kind of hard. It's like, oh, do I want to go to brunch? Do I want to go on a trip? That's what I was asking you. Where
Uh,
you but budgeting is really, really good. See, I'm not to the zero base yet one, 'cause that's a lot of mental. Okay, what I need for my bills, what I need for this,
right.
and how to save some money.
Yeah.
So with that zero-based budget though, like that means that you are really not, I wouldn't say strict, but like you really have to know like where your money is going. I like that you said that you use it, like you assign where your money is going. And so with that, do you feel like with your budget you're able to do everything that you want to do? Or do you feel like there's some areas that you feel like, oh, I wish I could do more here or I could do more there, and you're able to like kind of finagle your budget to do that? Or do you feel like you're like straight to the dollar?
Yeah, so for me, I would say one thing with the zero-based budget is that it doesn't mean that you have to really be strict per se with your spending. It's just where it's like, okay, like when I have this remaining funds after I pay like my main things, like my bills and stuff like that, it's like, okay, I have this bucket of like what I consider as your lifestyle gap. So your
Mhm.
lifestyle gap is what I calculate for a lot of my clients, and I help them to calculate is you basically take whatever income that you have coming in, you take away all of your expenses. So that includes like your bills and things like that. the money that you have left over is what you can use towards like your lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even though like, someone may not want to like specifically say like this money is for XYZ, they can just have like a general account for like their overall spending if they don't really want to go, very detailed, because you can budget based on creating an effective money map. And what that means is just having the right account set up where your finances are a little bit more automated. I personally have helped clients do that who don't really want to be as hands-on with budgeting. So everyone is different. It doesn't mean that just because I budget the way I do, you
Mm-hmm.
know, people can switch things up and do what works best for them. You can use a combination, of budgeting strategies to be able to find the best strategy for you.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. That's why they say that it's called personal finance because it is personal. You gotta figure out what works for you, and that's why I said, "Ooh, the zero-based budget, baby, that ain't gonna work for you, girl."
Exactly. And
I just be like, "Oh, okay," but I do know people who do it honestly. But I mean, also, I may have to get there. When I'm trying to pay my loans and do all that stuff. Like when I'm
mhm.
really trying to get on it, I gotta take baby steps into that personal finance journey. I wanted to ask you. You said that you've been doing it for about 6 years. I don't know if you can remember, but when you started, was there like any books that you really was like
No.
reading to help you, or like how did you transition into like personal finance and like to start budgeting and stuff like that?
Yeah. So to be honest, I was kind of already like, I would say generally I was like financially savvy per se when it
Mhm.
comes, oh, I know I needed to like save and things like that. But that was just like the basics. I didn't really start learning more about like actual like wealth building
Mhm.
until I moved from the Virgin Islands and I really started like in like, a professional setting in corporate and things like that. Because honestly, like you always heard people say, like, probably your family members and things like that, oh, save for a rainy day, save for a rainy day. So I at least knew like that aspect of it, but I didn't really have specifics. But with me, with budgeting, I know in my mind, I always had like to know kind of where my money was going. I was never really like, oh, like I'm just gonna randomly, kind of like spend. Like I still had like a very, loose idea of budgeting, I would say, when I was in college. But that's because like I had to make sure that my scholarship money, stretched and like, paid my rent and like
Mhm.
obviously paid tuition, get my books, and then still have money to like buy food and things like that. So I would say like it wasn't really like where I read anything. It was just like, girl, you gotta make sure this money like,
Laugh.
work. You're not working, you're just in college full time. So I would say that's kind of how it started. As I, obviously like grew older and started really like learning a little bit more, that's when I was like, okay, there's actual like systems to this. There's actual, strategies to this thing. And that's kind of how I really got into it.
Yeah, see, I think mine was switch because I'm like, baby, when I was in college, I was just like, spin, 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 go, go, go. Like, I'm like, man. And now I'm like, oh, hold on, let me bring that
Yeah.
back. So, yeah. It's funny that you mentioned like when you was growing up, like say for a rainy day, people were telling you that because I was watching this YouTuber how she was saying like people always say save for a rainy day, but it's like, oh my goodness, like that's like something bad is gonna happen. It's like once you like kind of change your mindset, it's like no, save for things you want. So if you want that MacBook, if you want that car, like also save, like if you want to travel, like save for that stuff too. Don't always just think like save for emergency funds, save for a rainy day, like that's something
Yeah.
that is going to happen. You can also use that to save up for things that you want to do. If you want to, you want to go to the Virgin Islands, you want to go to Africa, be able to have a travel fund to be able to save up for that. So I think
Exactly.
that's also cool too.
Yeah, and I always encourage, a lot of my clients, for example, because they get overwhelmed with like, okay, like I basically want to travel, but I still want to like, save up money for an emergency fund. And like I have debt, I have all these different like competing financial priorities. And I
Mm-hmm.
always sit down with my clients and really think of like both short term and like long term, goals, and working on a plan to create that action plan to say, okay, you're not going to get to do all of these things in 6 months, right? But in the 3 to 6 months, what are you trying to prioritize? And sometimes, normally, that's me helping them establish an emergency fund so that they can free up some money later on to do a lot more with when that money is kind of freed up. Depending, of course, on your income and your situation, you may not be able to do all of those things at once at the same, frequency. Yes, you can save for multiple things or like do multiple financial goals, but don't get yourself overwhelmed though. So I
Mhm.
not like recommend to say like, okay, what are my top goals, maybe my top 3 goals, but then what's the timeline? So for people that don't have like any money saved at all, I'm always like, okay, we need to start working on getting like those mini milestones established for like emergency fund. Like get your first 500 saved, get your first 1,000, then get your first month. That's kind of normally how I approach helping my clients, work through certain goals, especially when it comes to saving for that rainy day. Another
Mhm.
thing, when it comes to the rainy day, and I actually have a blog post about this that I just released yesterday for financial literacy
Oh,
on
okay.
my.
Send it to me so I can share it.
Yes, so my website is itsfinanciallywinning.com, and you guys can check out the blog post there. But I will provide you with the link, Alicia. But yes, so I was kind of just talking about the whole rainy day idea and the concept. And I really started out the blog post like, I know you guys heard about this, but no one really ever explained it, right? Because I don't think that our family members really knew what that really meant, like when it comes to like saving for a rainy day, because they were never able to like explain like, oh well, it's 3 months of expenses, it's 3 to 6 months of expenses, it's this, you need to put this in a different account, things like that. So then people now, they just hoard money. They just like, okay, well, I gotta save, I gotta save, I gotta
Mhm.
save. So then they get overwhelmed thinking like they never have enough, when it's like, okay, an emergency fund is a set type of amount. Obviously it will differ per person or per family.
Mhm.
If you have a child, you may have to worry about, okay, childcare. If you have spouse or whatever it may be, partner, whatever, you may have less money to have to worry about like some of your bills and expenses. So these are things that you need to factor in when you're trying to calculate that emergency fund number. But I always encourage individuals to not get too overwhelmed with, like the overall like 6 months, like that's going to take me so long to save 6 months of expenses, don't
Mhm.
with that, because your situation might be where, okay, you can be at least comfortable with 3 months. So just break down those bigger goals into smaller goals. And then, as you said, saving up for other things along the way is very impactful as well. And that's what I would consider as things called sinking funds.
Yes, yes, yes. Thinking funds are good. And as you were talking, when you were saying that you were like talking to clients in the beginning, like you can't do this now, you can't do this now, you can do this later. I thought of delayed gratification, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately now. And I think that some people don't think it is. It's like, oh, you can do this right now. And it's like, no, like sometimes you gotta delay that gratification. Like I do want to travel, but I also want to save some money now. And so it's
Hmm.
like no, people think that you can do it all at once. Like, well, no, you can just make some more money. It's like no, you can't just make some more money. Sometimes you do have to have the delayed gratification. Okay, first I want to work on my emergency fund, then I'll work on saving money for my travel. So also like saying that it's okay, like it's okay for delayed gratification because you know like what you're working towards, and sometimes everybody doesn't know what you're working towards or doesn't know what you're trying to do. So it's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna take it on me to delay my gratification right now because I know where I want to go and what I want to do. And so that's sometimes you got to think about that when it does come to finances. In order to win later, you're gonna have to figure out what you can do now to be able to go and do what you want to do later. So I think that that is something good. And I don't know if you talk to your clients about that, but how do you feel about like delayed gratification?
Yeah, I would definitely say delayed gratification is something that I currently, do. And I think I'll probably always do that on my financial journey, because I do think you're always on a financial journey. So, for example, last year I was more focused on paying off my debt, which was my student loans. And then when
Mhm.
I completed that, it was like, okay, like I need to shift a few things. I did adjust a lot of things in my budget because I was able to free up all of that money that I was putting towards student loans. So then I had to reevaluate like what are my overall financial goals, but while
Mhm.
still prioritizing the things that I like to do. Like I want to have fun, I want to travel, right? And as I said, it comes with that balance. So I don't think that people should just be all like, okay, goal, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. But I do think that you should try to strike that balance. So yeah, you may not get to travel, to like this far away place or somewhere that maybe would be more expensive for your budget, but you can try to do a staycation. You can do somewhere that's maybe like a state over, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Travel is travel, right? So don't think that just because you're not getting on a plane for 10 hours, that doesn't mean like, okay, you're not able to travel. So you
Mm-hmm.
may be able to kind of still, input some of those smaller travel goals versus like, okay, I may not be able to go to Egypt right now, but I can do this trip instead. You know what I mean? So it's kind of more of like finding that balance, because when I was paying off my student loans, I still traveled, and that did happen during the pandemic period, of course, but I still traveled. The pandemic year, in November of that year, I went to like Tulum, Mexico for my friend to celebrate like her birthday, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, I did like a few little trips here and there. And I think by the end of the journey, I probably had about like 6 or 7 trips within that time frame. So even though like I may not have been doing like my super, super, super big trips, like I still made time for travel because I knew that I would be miserable if I was just honing in only on these student loans. So I did kind of try to find that balance, even though I was super focused. Don't get me wrong, I was super focused. I was very dedicated, and that's why I was able to get it done faster than the time that I had originally intended to. But I still found that balance between, kind of like doing things that I really enjoy, and that came with me budgeting, right? Like, yeah, if I probably didn't do like anything at all, I probably could have been done in way less time than 11 months, but that's crazy, right? That's literally like me cutting out like every single thing, and I probably would have just fell off of my journey. So
Mm-hmm.
encourage people to be like strict and tight, and whereas like you're miserable, you know
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a really great point. So I like how you talked about that, being able to find the balance and stuff and being able to, make it work for you. So what do you think like was your first step in being like, because we're millennials and stuff like that, we do have student loans. Like when you're like, I want to pay off my student loans, you said 2 years,
Mhm.
and then it took you 11 months. Like, what was your first thought process, and like how did you mentally prepare to be able to attack those loans so quickly?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I get that question a lot when everyone hears my story. So I'm glad you really asked that, right?
Yeah.
So I have both, well, I have 3 degrees, but my associates was completely free. So I did community college in the Virgin Islands. So that was free for me, thankfully. I had a lot of scholarships that really covered majority of my undergrad education,
Mm-hmm.
but I did delay graduation a little bit for me to intern with like a big firm. So I actually like stopped school to be able to do like my internship like completely full time, which is kind of typical, for that line of work. So, anyways, so I went ahead and did all of that. I pushed my graduation, et cetera, et cetera. By the time I graduated, I had only taken out like a few thousand for undergrad just to kind of cover the remaining of undergrad. The chunk of that was grad school. So
I feel
I
you.
went,
Me too.
yes, the chunk of my like almost 22K of student loans was grad school.
Mm-hmm.
However, I did minimize my costs a lot when it came to grad school, because the one thing I did is I ended up staying in state. I worked during grad school full time, and I
Oh my
went to grad school full time, and it was year round. So I did two
God.
years straight, summer included.
How did you do that? I would have just, ooh.
Yeah, I did it. So that's kind of some of the ways that I was able to kind of minimize some of my costs,
Mm-hmm.
getting like at the end of that job that I was working at the time, I was able to get qualified for like tuition reimbursement. And then I also got scholarships like from the state for being like a minority student in that field. I was able to apply for like a scholarship, and they covered like a year of schooling. So majority of the loans honestly were very minimal just because of the things that I did to, minimize those loans. Because I could have went out of state, I could have done all of that, and I
Hmm.
could, went to a more expensive school, all of that.
Yeah,
But I was kind of like, I want to get this degree for like the least amount of money possible, like
I feel
the
that.
least. Yes. So that was kind of my journey in terms of like schooling, right? So after that, I did like this whole 6 month, grace period that they give you after grad school, etc. Honestly, I was kind of like, okay, like I'm not really gonna worry about these student loans right now. I'm gonna do my 6 month grace period. And then like the mid of that year, they kind of like had reached out, obviously, to say like, hey, your loans are starting, right?
Hmm.
So I went ahead and just paid my minimums, and I was just like, okay, cool. When 2022 came around, I basically had already said that would be the year that I would be focusing on getting rid of my student loans. So that's kind
Okay.
of where the original 2 year timeline came up. I
Mm.
was like, okay, by the end of 2021, I'll be done with the student loans. I kind of thought of it like, okay, I could probably swing halving it. So maybe like about 10K each year. So that's kind of how I came up with the two year time frame.
Uh,
Honestly, obviously, I never knew like a pandemic would happen. So that did derail my plans a little bit. But during that time when the pandemic struck and all of that, and I was kind of like putting aside some money, like just in case type of thing, And
mhm.
after I think around in like June, I can't remember if it's June or July. It's June. In June, I was kind of like, I'm comfortable with just kind of like making a leap and like getting rid of one or two of these student loans. So
Mhm.
within like 4 or 5 days apart, I had paid off like two student loans.
Oh, okay.
So what I did though is that you may be thinking of that big number, and I want everyone to realize that I had six different student loans. Okay. So I did not attack the entire balance. I attacked it by individual loans. So I
Yeah.
had loans that were maybe like 2,000 here, 3,000 here. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? I think the largest one I had, and don't quote me, but I think one of them was, I think, 7,000 or something. I think that was the largest one. But all of the other ones were like, just small little amounts to add up to that 22, almost 22K. So
So
I
you
use the debt
using that
snowball method.
snowball? Yes. Oh my gosh! I should just ask you. I was like, Avalanche.
Yeah.
You use the snowball one. Okay.
So
Okay.
I use the snowball method because I basically took all of the six loans and I put it by the smallest to the largest when it comes to the balances.
Mhm.
Honestly, they were all federal loans. So for me, the avalanche method would not really have made any difference because like they were all similar interest rates.
Uh.
So I just attacked it by the balance. People who definitely have like way large or varied interest rates,
Mhm.
doing the avalanche method or a combination of methods could be beneficial for them. But I personally did the that snowball method, and that's kind of how I went from there. I got the first two knocked out, and then I was just like, doing different things to like, okay, how can I get this third one knocked out? I knocked the third one by like October of that year. And then by like January, I had knocked out like the fourth one, and then I had two remaining, and then I had saved up the remainder of that money because it was like under the 10K.
Mhm.
And then that's when in May of last year, 2021, I was able to have the rest of that money all saved up to
Mhm.
be able to make the lump sum payoff. So that's kind of what my journey
Oh,
looked like.
okay.
And I would say, there were a lot of like windfalls happening in there as well. Like, for example, the stimulus checks and things like that. These are other things that I was able to use and leverage to be able to pay off my debt faster.
Oh, that's good. That is really good. I see how that works out. Yeah, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna be looking at the debt. But that's good though. It's like, okay, some things did really good for people in the pandemic. Some things went horrible, but majority
Yes.
were able to pay debt. You wasn't really going nowhere, so you got to save money and then you got to pay it off your debt. And yeah, so that's really good. And it's good when you're able to have a job and stuff that you're able to, be able to do that and being able to still work, while there's a pandemic. So that's really good. I wanted to ask you, oh, what industry did you go into? Did that have any effects on how you viewed finances? like what you
Not necessarily, but kind of, because I, by studies and profession, I am in the accounting and business, space. So I would say when it comes to just, math and accounting in general, that is my thing.
said?
Because I have my MBA and then I have an accounting bachelor's degree, and then
Hmm.
my associates is an associate's in business. So my
Oh,
background is in business and accounting. So
okay. So it's like you kind of knew, like you kind of knew more. You were able to learn.
a little bit, yeah, but honestly a lot of the stuff that they taught you in school is kind of more of like business side of things. They're
Uh,
not like helping you to budget your money. Like
uh-huh.
they might show you like an entire cash flow statement or income statement, whatever it may be for a business, but they're not really kind of showing you like,
It's not like
okay.
personal.
Exactly. They're not really showing you like, okay, how can I use these type of things in my own, personal finances. So
Oh,
it did help, of course, with my overall background, I would say,
mhm.
but it's not where that was like, oh, because I went to school for these type of, degrees, or I had these degrees, that like, oh, that made me like, I knew everything. That was definitely not the case.
Okay, okay, I see what you're saying. And so, I wanted to ask if you had any advice for people who wanted to financially win. Like, what would you tell them the first thing to do? How to financially
Mm-hmm.
win?
Yeah, so this is a great question. And honestly, I have, a lot of little like tidbits that I could drop. But one of the things I would definitely say is focus on like what does financially winning mean to you. So for other some people that may be like, yeah, I have X amount of money in the bank, right? Other people may be, oh, I'm just not living paycheck to paycheck. Other people, it's like I can just live my life and don't have to worry about money. Other people may be supporting their family or supporting you know their community and just different things. So define like what winning financially means for you, and just create your ideal financial life based off of that. Because I can tell you like, oh yeah, like winning financially means like, oh, you have a budget, you da 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 da, but
Mm.
like you need to first figure out like, why do you even want to be you know in a good place financially? Like, why do you want it? Because I can tell you like, oh yeah, make sure you have your budget, make sure you start investing, make
Mhm.
sure you pay off your debt. Like, but that doesn't really help if someone doesn't really have like kind of what they say like as a why. Like, what's your why for wanting to do any of this? Like, me personally, I just definitely want to get rid of my debt, which was only student loans. I was like, this gotta go. Like, I don't want to be paying these things anymore. I got things to do, I got places to travel to. And I just knew that freeing up my budget from paying these student loans or just being tied into these student loans for, 20 years or whatever, was just not in my financial plan, and definitely not in my financial future. And that's why I prioritize, that portion of my finances. Now I do things completely different from when I was paying off debt. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I found out, or I found my reason for just wanting to kind of be on this financial journey. And a lot of times I tell my clients too, like, I can't come into your home or whatever and budget for you, right? Like,
Mhm.
I can give you all the tools. I can literally be talking about finances and how to do this and how to do that every single week to people. But if they don't actually want to apply the knowledge that they're getting, or they actually don't want to, put in the work and put in the methods that I'm talking about, it's just gonna go in one ear and come out the next, right?
Mhm.
So I tell people all the time, especially when they're trying to work with me, like one-on-one coaching, I'm like, why do you want to do this? Like, are you really serious about getting your finances in order? Because yeah, you can pay me money or whatever to do coaching, but I'm not that type of person where it's just like, oh, you work with me and then like you can never hear from me again. I'm trying to really see you do well. So I need you to be dedicated, as dedicated as I am going to be with following up with you and helping you through this process.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. That was really great. That was a really great answer. I like that answer. Yeah, because it is what works for you and how you want to do it. And so when I think of it, financially winning for me, I would say I'm not gonna say debt yet because that's just gonna be there for a minute. But I'll say financially winning to me is like okay, like I don't have to like live paycheck to paycheck. I don't have to be like, oh my gosh, can I spend this? Can I spend that? Like financially winning to me looks like me taking a trip every month, and I'd be like, I'm still good. Like okay, I can
Right.
go somewhere every month. I don't have to look at my bank account. You know, I know I'm good. I know what's coming in and what's going out and stuff like that. So I think
I
that's really
love that.
know like what it is. So clearly I'm not financially winning yet, but I am on the road, okay?
But don't say that. Don't say that. Like, just because you're not exactly where you want to be doesn't mean you're not, winning financially. Because I think, we have to also frame our mindset into like, I'm doing well for the,
Like
the
where
spot
I'm
that
at
I'm
now.
at right now. Exactly. And that I am continuously working towards XYZ.
Hmm.
But if you at least know certain things like, okay, I know how much I'm paying in bills, I know how much money I'm making, I know my credit score, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing some investing, like maybe through my job. Trust me, that is still winning financially, okay? Like, so don't discredit yourself at all.
Well, yeah, that's true. I guess I should say I'm not where I want to be able to take trips every month, okay?
That's
But
all
I know
right.
I'm better
Yes.
than I was, okay? Yes, I'm still
Yes.
working on it. Yeah, definitely true. So yeah, so we're financially winning like in our own way. That is
Exactly. And that's all that matters because, like, as I kind of said earlier, like, I always tell my clients, like, I can't come into your house and budget for you. But, like, once you know that you're doing what you need to do and you are working towards, your goals and things like that, like, that's you doing well and putting in the work. And honestly, like, working on your finances is not this, like, linear, like, oh, yeah, as soon as I start budgeting, I'm going to have this down packed. That's not going to happen. Okay. I have been, in that finance and business space, as I said, with my educational background in terms of knowing and understanding, business side of things when it comes to finances and accounting, right? And I can tell you, even with that educational background and my personal success when it comes to finances, I still make adjustments to my budgets and and things like that. It's not like where, oh, you can just start budgeting today and like you don't make a mistake, you don't go over a budget and things like that. I personally always check in with my budget because I'm more of a hands-on person, as I said. But there are other ways and different techniques and strategies and tools that you can use to be able to kind of more streamline your finances and do well, and just do well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I want to say thank you so much for joining me today on the channel to talk about financially winning. I want you to
Yes.
let everybody know where they can follow you at and find you if they will like want to work with you or they want to follow you for inspiration and whatever else you have going on for travel or for financial tips. Where can they find you at on the internet?
Yes, awesome. So for financially winning, I have my website, which is itsfinanciallywinning.com. You can have access to free resources, my blog, and then you can also, ask me like questions and it would send me like an email. So you can just go to my website, ask me personal finance questions. If you want to kind of work with me one on one, of course, you can also go on my website and sign up for a one on one coaching session. I have about three different packages currently being offered. And when it comes to just kind of like your typical like weekly finance content, I'm currently not active on Instagram. However, I have tons of personal finance content that you can go on there and you can literally binge my content, and kind of get your stat there. But
Mhm.
yeah, I am readily available via my website and you can find tons of information and free content there as well. And I do have a free money toolkit for individuals when they go to my website. So that gives you access to like a free budget template. You have like a goals sheet and other things in that packet, and that's for free.
Okay, yay.
And
Thank you.
yes, and then when it comes to if you want to follow any of my travel, I am on YouTube for my travel brand. So that is Traveling with Niqua, and that's Niqua. So you can watch my travel vlogs and just watch all of my travel tips that I share on YouTube. And then also on Instagram and Facebook, I'm available there as well at Traveling with Niqua.
Yes. Okay. Are you over the Instagram for financially winning right now? Are you just taking a hiatus?
Instagram, I'm kind of taking like a break when it comes to the financially winning Instagram. I am kind of over like being in that IG personal finance space, to be honest. So I've been really just more focusing on nurturing, my clients that work with me one on one, and just making sure, like, I keep up with at least putting out my monthly blog posts and my monthly newsletter to really work, with the individuals that want to really kind of get that content. I
Mhm.
think the personal finance space on Instagram is a little like sometimes. So I'm just kind of taking a break, but I am very much available, for new clients, and
Mhm.
for any individual that wants to just kind of get started. Content is there and readily available.
Yes, I feel you. I've actually been over content creation for Instagram for a long, long time. I'm slowly getting back into it, but we'll see
Yeah.
how that goes. Okay. But yeah, I definitely will be looking at the travel because, of course, I'm a travel blogger too, so that's really cool. But I want to say thank you so
Yes.
much, for talking, for sharing your insight, your content, and just all your knowledge about that. And congrats again on, being debt free because we love that over here for us. And
Yes.
yeah, y'all go check her out. Make sure you subscribe if you have not subscribed. Make sure you like this if you are watching the replay. If you made it to this end, the end of the episode, make sure you like it, make sure you comment, and check out both of our channels and our other content that is on the channels as well. Thank you all so much for listening, and hopefully y'all are financially winning, and we wish you prosperous financial wins for the rest of 22 for the rest of 2022 and beyond.
That's right. That's right. And thank you guys for watching. And thank you, Alicia, for having me as your guest. I really appreciate the invite. And it was great chatting with you and your audience.
Yes, you are so welcome. Thank y'all so much. Okay, tune in to another one of these lives. It'll be on Monday. Don't know if it's gonna be in May, but we're gonna come back. But make sure you subscribe and check out the community tab so you can see the announcements of when I will be coming back. Bye.